Oh no. Wow. She lost. I'm so surprised. What's up, guys? I'm Pencil, and here to do a breakdown / live reaction review to chat. Well, not live reaction review. I did that, which is 28 minutes over on Patreon. For those wondering, I remember, I'm advertising too soon. Here we're going to do a breakdown and review of chapter 171 of Fortnite's which is known as Rage. And, ladies and gentlemen, this chapter simultaneously went exactly as I expected it to, but also in a completely different direction than I expected it to, which I will definitely take. Once again, I have many issues with Nagaba Suzuki. Many. He's a freak. He's a little bit freaky in this chapter. But, with this being the case, I gotta respect his hustle. My ankles, they're still shattered. So let's not waste any more time and let's hop right into it. Heading me. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go. What's up, guys? That guy with a pencil here. Fun fact, I do mean to have it on me and keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact, Nagaba knows. Nagaba knows. And like, I'm not even saying Nagaba knows because I'm pretty sure it's intentional on his part. Look at this image, dog. Look at this image, dog. Look at this image, dog. He got his main thing on his left, gripping all up on the arm. He got his side piece in his hand, gripping all up on his right. And he got his homeboy in the back, knocking something back. Nagaba Suzuki. If you had a middle name, I'd say that too. Nagaba. Here's the thing, right? I know for a fact that Nursival, Possians, whatever you want to call it, it's not happening. It's not. I can see the future on some things, all right? I may, in fact, have the Sharingan at certain times. This is one of them. I know it won't happen, Nagaba. So the fact that you leave these crumbs, these drizzles, at the same time as you feed Pan, as you feed Pan 12-star meals, Nagaba, it's cruel. And it's unusual punishment for all the Pansians out there. The Possians? Because the Nasians. The Possians out there. I know it's painful. And you know what's even worse? It's the fact that Boris now, he honestly, with Nasians already existing, whoa, what was that sentence I just uttered with my human lips? That sounded even weird. Whoa, but Nasians already sort of filling the whole, what's the word I'm looking for? Unrequited love trope. Like, of the character who really likes it. Then again, I guess technically it still is. It's a roundabout way of it. But then again, I think I've seen it before too. It's the unrequited lover, not for the main character. Unrequited love, not for the main character, but for the main character's main love. I'm trying to think of an example of this. My brain is screaming like Jet and Qatar from Avatar, but that's not a thing. Like, it really isn't. It was like a thing for like half a second. I wouldn't really count that. And like, I would say that was more manipulation than like love on Jet's part. But essentially, Boris likes Anne, but Anne likes Percy. And Nasians likes Percy. Nasians is not getting with Percy. Anne is getting with Percy. Boris stands no chance. But Nasians also stands no chance at Percy. So like, technically, Boris isn't redundant on a writing front because he wants Anne. But the thing that's weird about him wanting Anne is that he's like functionally a 6-year-old. He's in the body of an adult. But remember, he went into Camelot as a child. Like a child. And then proceeded to spend the next 16 years, or not 16, however many years it was, growing up with like no family. Other than his non-aging, consistently, perpetually child-minded sister. So like, I'm not even sure if he's like mentally an adult, which makes that kind of weird. And also, it is just a general strange choice, I'm not gonna lie. Especially considering how I put this nicely. The cast is already kind of bloated, and as Nagaba already proved, but then again, he's been doing a better job. But the way these Secret Treasures are, they maybe kind of. But I'm sorry, I'm going to like a real deep narrative right here. But hey, welcome back on the pencil. But like, the cast is already pretty stuffed as it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have even that, and that's with us offing Jade a while ago. Like offing Jade over a year ago. Is that a lie? Is it over? Yeah, I think over a year ago at this point. After offing Jade, we still have the 4 titular characters, 2 of which haven't even been properly reintroduced yet. And by properly reintroduced, I mean Tantris is Tristan, but like he's not really Tristan, if you know what I'm talking about. And obviously Lance is still nowhere to be seen. We have not gotten a mention of that man since his dad brought it. Well, we've gotten mentions of him as in characters want to know where he is. But the last time we got a sighting of Lance was all the way back right when the time skip started, with post-time skip Bond being like, my son was sad. You made my son sad. I will now rip out your entrails. So Lance is still missing. Gawain, we just got back. Enchantress is still Tristan, but not really Tristan. We have the 4 titular characters. Then we have Donnie, Nasians, and Anne. Now, Anne is obviously the female lead of the story, I would say, and the main love interest to Percy, so she's somewhat fine, and I think she gets enough focus, even though it's unfortunate that she had to go on the first round. Then also we have the Tristan platoon in Isolde and Kion. It is so, can anyone do, I cannot fully extend this finger without extending my pinky, but like, that's 9 characters that we already kind of need to focus on. So adding Borscht just feels weird. Like honestly, don't get me wrong, it's cool, and I think he is somebody. Like, he's somebody. There's so many characters who are like somebody in think, Brain Blast, Arthurian mythology, that like, almost every single character that gets name dropped, I find out thanks to you guys in the comments that apparently it was somebody. But I think Borscht is a name that even I heard before. 4 Knights, I think. So maybe he'll be important. But then again, remember, we also are apparently adding Gareth. And there's a non-zero chance that Ballin's joining too. If Ballin doesn't secretly end up being Lance or Gother somehow, then unless he stays on foot again to look for more challenging fighters, he may be like, oh, you guys are strong, I'll roll along with you. And like, this means we're gonna have 10 characters. I'm assuming Borscht just won't be that relevant, but it's still weird that he's here. It's just like when we already have like this whole mess that is this thing. But let's not waste more time. Let's actually hop right into chapter 171, Rage. And we see Anne just still waffle stomping. Well, this is a continuation of the end of the last chapter, where she gave Diodora front shots? Like, front shots doesn't sound right. I've said it before, but front shots does not sound right. Not that back shot sounds much better, but like front shots, it just doesn't. I guess technically maybe. But then again, I say if I were to say like, oh, she gave him shots, then some of y'all would be looking at me like, wait, what? So like, I feel like front shots is specific because of the implication of back shots, but like it just doesn't roll off the tongue as well as back shots. Back shots. Back shots. 4 syllables. Front shots. Still 4 syllables. Yeah, I don't know, something about it. But essentially, Anne rams Diodora from the front and sends him flying with her. Let me stop. And let me just let Capitone explain. Engelhand's eye-popping barrage sends Diodora helplessly flying through the air. And we see Rothus be like, you are Diodora! No! But like, why did they, obviously they're his servants, so presumably they just listen. But like, why did they let him do this? What did they think was going to happen? like obviously what I think they thought was going to happen happens anyway. And then they do what they apparently had planned to do all along. But like, this is, why would you even allow him to be in this compromising position? Like, this is horrid. But we see that while Rothus is like, no, my glorious King Lord Diodora. Turret's like, like he's annoyed, but you can clearly tell he expected it. And that's the thing. Turret is going to do some stuff later on in the chapter. I'm going to be like, hey, bad man. But he does seem like a cold stone realist. If you don't get what I mean now, you'll get it soon enough. As we see, Diodora just studs against the ground. He goes rolling on his stomach. Disarmed, knocked down. It's horrid. Like, she genuinely one-tap, bro. And I want to remind you, she poked him with a rapier. She didn't hit him with, like, with a log or, like, smack. No, she straight tapped him. And he went flying 3 whole body lengths. Wait. 1, 2, 3 whole body lengths away from her. That's embarrassing, Diodora. From Mirage Stinger. None of the swords were real, Diodora. It was just one of them. That's sad. And we see the whole crowd goes absolutely buku bonkers as Boris says, did you see that? Too incredible. And Evelyn's like, whoa, I did not get paid enough for that. Who are you? Why are you here? And we see him go, yeah. And this guy. Is this Gother? Am I tweaking? but like, is this Gother? Because Mystery Packers ended up being Gother. He ended up being Dubs. So like the only other Gother candidates are threefold. It's either Ballin, which I don't think could be possible. Gother's extremely powerful magically. Would he be powerful enough to dispel Gawain's attacks? Who knows? Possibly. But Ballin, I feel like that's a little bit too weird. I feel like he's a little bit too deeply ingrained into the nature of Camelot, or this part of Camelot and Anfund. But then again, never know. Gother can manipulate memories how many years ago, or delete them, so like, wouldn't be shocked if he just made himself up there. 2, Capital Knee, solely for the fact that they don't seem to know how the realm works all too well and doesn't seem to have any sort of history and seem to be new here in general. And it wouldn't be the first time that Gother's mind wipes somebody in order to make sure he blends in nice and well. He is that kind of person. And 3, this guy, mainly because we keep seeing him. And like, don't get me wrong, we see the same crowd of like random people surrounding Edlin and Bors, but this guy is like the one constant. You'll see him like almost every other chapter where he's just sitting there beside the two silent. If it's Gother, it could be neat. It looks like one of the spirits that Kion summoned in the past, though. The wind spirit that initially suffocated all of the percival platoon, that's what this guy looks like to me. But then again, it looks like he's more in a rag than like a swirling coat of wind. But with it being the case, we see that Pelio's like, whoa, that stab was nasty. I know she was built like that for real, for real. And I was like, yes, indeed, she's built like that for real, for real. I put respect on it. And I'm not sure if this is just like perspective or Pelio's actually genuinely this much taller than Hauser, and Isolde is by proxy that much taller than Hauser too. Like, how tall? Hold on. I'm about to take a look in a book, reading Rainbow. But Hauser, I did not know there was a guy in Star Wars named Hauser. Butter my behind and call me a biscuit buckaroo. I did not know that piece of information right there. He's voiced by Ray. Ray! Stop popping up! Ray Chase! You multifaceted, talented man beast. How do you appear everywhere? But, wait, let me see. Hauser, give me your biological data. I don't need your plot, I need your character. I need your character description. How tall are you, buddy? How tall are you, buckaroo? How tall? He's 6 foot. He's 6 foot. I mean, that's still tall. Still very, very tall. I'm only a foot and a half tall. But still, he's 6 foot. So if this image is to be believed, Pelio is not only taller than 6 foot, because he seems a little bit taller than House here, but Isolde's got to be like a solid 6'8", maybe even. Considering it looks like she's head and shoulders above Hauser. Like her shoulder lines up with Hauser here. So Isolde, Tristan, you just like me for real. You like him real tall. But let's see. Oh, we see that Dubs re-equips the mask. Notably, he doesn't leave though. We'll see him later on in this chapter. He does stick around to watch the matches still. Now, obviously, this may mean because he cannot escape back to the, I forget what the ship is called, but essentially the ship that Gawain lives on with her father. But at the same time, that does kind of mean we may not see the Percy's Sacred Treasure or Gawain's Sacred Treasure because he's not working on them anymore. He said they were in progress, but he didn't give them to anybody else. It's like, kind of funky. I don't know. I find it a little bit weird. I was really hoping that they'd be revealed here. Maybe he loses in the next round to Percy because I believe it'd be, yeah, it's going to be him versus Percy next. So maybe he purposely losing the next round to Percy is going to be like, all right, deuces, I'm going to go back. I'm going to finish working. I'm going to bring you your stuff, hopefully before the final round. Bada bing, bada boom. Maybe that's going to be the case here because he says, oh, she's making the most of her Mirage Stinger in short order, I see. Quite a piece of work. And Percy says, oh yeah, she's the best. In more ways than one. Dubs. I'm going to show her something. And it won't be a mirage. But with it being the case, does anyone else notice that he's drawn like small here? And not small as in like, he's a small little baby boy. But also he's just like seemingly shorter and like less post time skip Percy. His face shape, his height relative to Nasians, though he was always shorter than Nasians previously, so he's still a small here. I mean, once again, it may just be a perspective thing. But ultimately, he looks really, really small and babyish here. He does not look like post time skip Percy here. It's not a bad thing. Once again, it's still a good drawing, but it looks very non time skip Percy-esque, which is interesting. But with it being the case, we see that Diodora is like, oh, sweet mother of mercy. I didn't know French Ox could feel that bad, but I cannot afford to lose ever. And he swings in and just blocks it. Once again, ultimately, while Diodora was very well trained by Mortlock, it's clear that Mortlock he's not saying he was butt, But remember, Mortlock, who was wielding Mortlock's fighting style, was getting dogged on by a, what, 2 weeks of, or how many, I forget how many days it was that they trained. But Percy barely has any sword experience, and even he still was dogging Mortlock's ultimate technique, Thousand Cross. So Anne, who's been a swordswoman all her life and has gotten into multiple intense battles, being able to completely no-sell Diodora's fighting technique, which is based off Mortlock's technique, which is clearly inferior to what the knights or their apprentices or allies have access to. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And I do like, if that's the one thing I'll give. If we're going to remove Anne, so we can get the Percy versus Diodora fight, which, a concession, naturally, we're going to make because character conflict. I'm glad she at least gets to look really, really cool and really, really potent and really, really powerful. I'm glad, and in fact, the way she goes out is something I'm okay with solely for the fact that she has to go out in that way. If something else happened, once I get to it, I'll explain more what I thought was going to happen versus what ended up actually happening, and why I like what actually happened much more than what I thought was going to happen. Let's continue. As we see Anne no-sells the swing of the blade, and Diodora, he runs away, trying to get some distance. And, you know, I don't blame him necessarily, because, like, I don't know. If I was in a fight, I was getting the cheeks beaten off me, I also would want a little bit of time to, like, recover and breathe and think, sweet mother of mercy, why are my ankles shattering? But we see that Anne asks, can you tell me, is your father Ironside, the red of the four evils? I initially didn't like that Ironside was red, but I finally started watching a little bit of the anime, and I actually do like it. I'm a little mixed on how they did Palmar in the anime, but like I'm more okay. How do I put it? I'm more okay with it than I was before. I really did not like Red Ironside. I thought his original manga design in Black and Light just looked way cool. I just wish they had kept that, like made him the Twilight or like a Light Knight or something like that. Especially considering he like wields light particles, or at least that's what it seems like. But with it being the case, we see that Diodora's like, why? Why do you know about me? And then Anne's like, oh, confirmation. Thank you. So it is true. And I can't blame Diodora for asking that question. Because if I was getting the brakes beaten off me by somebody and then they just pulled out my dad's not just name, but also title and the very company and group he worked for, I'd be like, whoa, what? The confusion would rock me too, Diodora. I don't blame you. But we see that Anne declares, so it is true. Then do you know about him? The boy who was forced to walk a sad, cruel path his whole life because of you. Now this... And it's something, as I've started my reread a little bit for part one, in order so I can like do a proper actual review of part one. Considering I've waited way too long to just do a genuine first reactions of part one review, so I want to do a reread so that I can actually talk about part one in its entirety. But one thing I do like about Anne, and it's sort of like skyrocketed her up my favorite character list in part one. I still think Nasians is my favorite, just because I'm super biased towards Nasians, but I do love these moments for Anne, where like the funny stuff is dropped, the freaky stuff is dropped. Like, Anne gets real freaky. Nakama gets real freaky with Anne. A lot. Like, a lot. Especially in part one. It's actually, weirdly enough, it's toned down in part two. Which is a blessing, but also Nakama. That's weird. But ultimately, it's toned down a lot. But I love the moments like this, where she sort of fits into what her magic has sort of predesignated her to be. This, like, arbiter of judgment, essentially. y'all are playing this little game called Undertale, but like ultimately, I love when she has these moments of like, do you get this? Do you understand? Do you know what I know? Can you understand? Can you tell me why? Where like the interrogator truly does come out, and obviously that's the name of her magic. So, but at the same time, you can tell it's a genuine part of her character. She's someone who not only seeks adventure and seeks bonding and time and friends with the others, but she also genuinely she wants to understand. And thusly, it makes me wonder if her magic led to her or she led to her magic. I don't know. But with it being the case, we see that Percy goes, oh, Anne, baby girl, don't talk like that to him. I need to beat the brakes off of it. But we see Diodora grips up his blade as tight as possible and says, I don't know anything about that. Oh, and one thing I do want to mention. For all intents and purposes, Anne is half right. Percy did live a relatively good life. Like, not a good life, because he had to spend all his time isolated alone with his grandpa. But at the same time, he lived a majority of his life isolated and alone with his grandpa. A lot of Percy's suffering has been recent. Like, he just gained y'all for what? Maybe 2 months in universe pre-time skip? And just left the mountain, or just left God's finger for a very little time in part 1, and then spent 2 years away. So ultimately, he actually hasn't spent much time alone or suffering, realistically, relative to the rest of his lifespan. And especially even with his time having wandered into the demon realm, so being called by the behemoth, being like, "Oh, Ugg, please!" And then he answered the behemoth's call. He was still chilling. In fact, Zeldris and Gelda consider Percy, they're, slow down and speak English coherently. Zeldris and Gelda considered Percy their own child. So, like, clearly, Percy was very well loved by his guardian figures. So while Anne does bring up a good point that a lot of Percy's life and the suffering he's experienced so far all has to do with the fact of Diodora and his very fragile existence, technically, Percy's whole existence was not one of suffering. And dare I say, it was not one of suffering to an even lesser degree than Diodora's was not. Or I keep calling him Diodora, but because that was how he was translated previously. But considering how consistent Diodora has been, I think it is Diodora. But ultimately, how consistent Diodora's suffering has been. As he'll go to tackle on later, and I'll go to pile on my own beliefs and why I personally don't blame Diodora all too much. But with that being the case, I do want to say that Diodora being ignorant of all this works very, very well. It makes perfect sense considering the nature of Ironside and how realistically sad and tragic Diodora's own story is relative to Percy. It's a tragic story both ways, and that's why I like it so much. It's why I'm so excited to see their fight in particular. As Diodora says, "I don't know anything about that. Ha! Ta! Swish! Swing!" And he gets, like, smacked away by Anne and Mirage Stinger. And we see that Rothus is like, "Who is that girl? Watch her moves more. Watch her moves more, Lord Diodora." And Turret, unlike Rothus being the realist, is like, not even close in level. Like Turret, I don't know why, but for some reason that particular archetype, I lean with it and I rock with it. I lean with it. Hold on, wait a minute. What is this? I need to check something. Bam! All right, there we go. But I do like the two sides of it. You can clearly tell that Rothus is the more idealistic and directly supportive of Diodora, right? Like, from all of his reactions being much more intense than Turret's to what he ends up doing later, screaming and grabbing onto someone. Well, not in that way, but like in that way, kind of. You can definitely tell he's the more idealistic of the two, including the younger, right? He's smaller. He even looks closer to the age of our cast, ironically enough. Meanwhile, Turret is the cold, hardened warrior, and is much more pragmatic, as he's the one who just immediately notes that there's no way that Diodora is going to win this fight. Ultimately, he is too weak, and that's something else that I'm going to end up praising a bit for Nakaba, especially considering how Anne's going to lose this fight. But we see that he gets knocked away again, and is once again breathing heavy. And Anne says, "I just don't understand it. You have a caring father, a privileged upbringing. You wanted for nothing in your life. You had everything. So why are you in this prison where discontentment and where the discontent and the doubtful are sent?" And notably, this is interesting. I guess it makes sense that they may not have realized it, but a lot of the people here suddenly go, "Hey, what's she talking about? Hey, don't ask me." Ultimately, they're starting to realize that, oh yeah, they're prisoners. But then again, like, I think they should know. Like, unless they just haven't been paying attention to what Beltriep says. It's not like Beltriep is subtle about the fact that this is a prison. Like it's not a nice place to live either. Like, I don't know what they think they were cooking here, but they suddenly seem to have been awakened by the idea that, oh, wait, maybe I'm not happy. Hold on, what am I doing here? But we do get to see that Diodora says, "What would you, of all people, ever know about me? I'm under no obligation to answer a question to someone I've never even met." Well, that is true. it pretty much immediately backfires. Because by denying the answering of her question, he immediately triggers her innate magic, the Interrogator, which pins him to the ground. Now, I will readily admit, Diodora is a lot physically stronger than I expected him to be. I know it's because he's in Camelot, which obviously drastically boosts his physical abilities enough that he can even survive in the first place, with the Demon King's, I guess, internal poison lingering throughout his body. But with that being the case, he actually is able to hold himself up when deeply pressed into the ground. Like, note that he even makes a straight up indent into the floor, but he doesn't go lower than his hands and knees, which is actually pretty impressive. We've seen people who deny Anne's questions before, even pre-time skip, when presumably her and her magic were like weaker. It really depends on how much of Anne's magic is like based on her own output versus just an invisible force, like how much it works. Who knows? Maybe it even is like a hand that literally just appears and crushes people down. But still, we've seen people be like straight, like flattened out because of it. When it first initially spawned, of course, Macduff was missing an arm by that point, but still, Macduff, who's really, really powerful, relatively speaking, definitely more powerful than the Ozra. He's straight. I should not have hit myself that hard. Now my thigh's gonna sting. But he hard clocked against the ground. So Diodora is actually pretty impressive for not only being able to wield a sword, mimic Mortlock's fighting style, but also to be able to maintain any sort of stability in the face of something so powerful. Anne's magic. Like, I ain't gonna sleep. I think Anne's magic is really conditional, and I think her Sacred Treasure sucks, but overall, her magic is really potent. But we see, like Capital Knees bamboozled to say, and now Diodora suddenly on his hands and knees. Pause. And we see that Donnie's like, yeah! Now, Anne, please stop wasting time and knock him out. Don't pull a me. And we see that Capitone realizes almost like he's being forced to yield to some invisible power. And honestly, this may have accidentally ended up backfiring on Anne. Now I think about it, because ultimately it is the introduction of her invisible power, her imperceptible attack here, that probably gave Beltripe and Capitone the go-ahead for what's going to happen to her. They're like, hey, if we see one invisible power being used by one combatant, why shouldn't we believe another invisible power couldn't exist under the will and command of another combatant? Especially considering the wielder of the actual user of what will go on to defeat Anne is far, far away, nowhere near the ring, and whispers it to themselves. But with it being the case, we see that Beltripe finally has some alarm bells going off in his head. He's like, wait a minute. Oh, I'm about to think, brain blast all over this place. The girl did that. It seemed to trigger after she asked him several questions. Could it be the spell I've heard rumor of? Interrogator? If so, that makes this girl... Are you alright, sir? Part of their team. Wait. Whose team? How odd. I can't seem to recall. Yo, like, Gawain, what were your grandparents feeding you, dog? What was Dubs feeding you, dog? How? Like, I can't even... I think she does. She does. In fact, she does very clearly. In fact, her introduction is her using a large scale illusion magic when she first introduces Arthur, ironically enough, all the way back at the beginning of the series. But when I think of Merlin, I don't really think of the illusion side or the mental manipulation magic side of things. But Gawain, for just imbuing deceiver magic into these rings, to have Beltripe forcefully forget, like, this is essentially, from what it's implying here, and remember, this is the effect of the magic imbued in the ring. It's not like the ring is directly affecting the ring, due to itself, is directly affecting Beltripe, even though it's nowhere near him. So Beltripe is far, far away. He has fought Anne before, in this very same outfit. Not with the same weapon, of course, but the very same outfit. He knows what she looks like. He's heard rumors of her magics. He's been running about, causing a mess in Camelot for the past 2 years. But just because her hostile intent isn't directed towards Beltripe, he can't even place it. His brain is auto-rewriting itself. It is simply saying, no, it's not that. Who? Sure, this is information that in every other universe would click, but it won't click because of those darn rings. And that's impressive. Like, that is you want to talk about top-tier quality. Like, that top-of-the-line stuff, that's it right there. That's real good deceiver magic. But with it being the case, Anne says, if you don't want to answer me, that's fine. Soon, you'll just pass out. And then I win. And this This is also, it's a continue, and once again on the reread notice, Anne also does have this problem a little bit in part 1 too, where she doesn't seem to like, both her and Donnie have this bad, poor issue where they don't finish their opponents as quickly as they can, especially if they're in the middle of like lecturing them. Because realistically, Anne should like knock Diodora out of the ring. She should finish him right here and now. There's no reason to continue engaging with them, especially considering, for all intents and purposes, the longer you engage with them, who knows what could happen. What I thought was going to happen is that Diodora was going to awaken his own magic power somehow, brought forth by the simulation of true combat for the first time, and then boom, he's going to like defeat Anne and something like that. But we see ultimately it's Rothus who says, "Hey, Turret, if this keeps up," and Turret's like, "He's going to lose." Yes. And Rothus is like, "No, my glorious king, Diodora!" And we see Diodora say, "I was privileged. I wanted for nothing. I had everything. Yes, I am the son of Ironside. But that is all I possess. No power, no magic, not even a sound body. I'm only able to survive thanks to my father and the land of Camelot. I'm just this worthless human being. But now, my dear father didn't mind. He just smiled kindly at me and said, 'As long as you're with me, son.' And now Dad's forgotten all about me, about my very existence and all the days he spent with me. All I want is to bring those memories back from my father, that kind father, wholly ruined by the four knights of the apocalypse." Wait, what do you mean? So, to come to Diodora's defense, number one, it's not his fault. Like, notably, Anne throws the idea that it's your fault that Percy exists the way he does, and he suffered for that. Technically, no. Diodora did not consent to that at all. Like, he did not, and notably, he did not want his father to do what he did for him. Only that is the choice of Ironside. It is 100% Ironside's fault for using his abilities, and on top of that, it's Varghese' fault for taking baby Percy away and allowing the life spirit to develop into its own unique being, and not just having the Diodora body or Diodora soul go into that body. It is bad. But it is still all Ironside's fault. It has nothing to do with Diodora. Number two, I can respect two things. Well, I'll get into the second thing. I'll respect one thing. Diodora has lived a life with a barely able, a not sound body. Even while in the land of Camelot, the Demon King's poison has been so effective that even in spite of his aging, developing into a young adult at this point, he's 18, remember, he's the same age as our cast, the Demon King's poison has not lost its effect on him. Presumably, if he were to leave Camelot, that boy would die. He would not immediately, but like whatever is maintaining him would immediately degrade and he'd just perish, presumably, because of how potent the Demon King's poison is. And because of that, he's not been able to live with an able body. And notably, I was looking up to be born able-bodied. A fully functioning body is a gift. And I don't know about y'all, but whenever I get sick, everything in me hurts. Everything. I could just have like a sinus infection or a sore throat, but then I can't speak. It gets harder to breathe. Every single motion takes 2 times the energy and moves at like 25% of its efficiency. It is awful. Now imagine that's your life. There are people out there who consistently live with sickness every single day, and the experience I had for like a week recently when I was sick. Y'all have videos of me being sick, and you can see it. It just takes so much more energy to do certain things, even on the recovery period. But the thing with Diodora is that there is no recovery period. This is his life. He's just stuck like this for eternity and evermore. He has no hope of ever breaking free of the poison that has latched onto his body. And honestly, I do genuinely feel bad for him. And I understand his pain and agony. And notably, this may just be a me thing, I also get the desire to just want to be something. Especially in regards to your father, when your father cares about you. Like, notably, I know there are a lot of people who do not have fathers who care for them or love them. But I was lucky enough to have one of those. And I can't imagine the lengths I would go to if suddenly my father just didn't remember me. If he looked at me and was like, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" go away. I'd like my heart would also legitimately shatter. So I like Diodora. He's in a real world situation. He is a tragic character, and he is a tragic, powerless character, which will allow me to get into the other thing that I really like that this chapter does for Diodora. As Rothus declares, "Turret!" And Turret says, "Fine. So fun." And notably, we see Percy immediately freaking geek out, seemingly powering up as he blinks and his everything raises. And Anne's arm snaps. She gets sent rolling through the sky like a rag doll. Boom! And then it begins. Anne! The one thing I like, I've said this at the beginning, Anne does lose this chapter. Loses very badly too, but it's not to Diodora. Diodora truly is empty. He truly is powerless. I thought what was going to happen, especially with the chapter being titled Rage, I thought ultimately it would be the rage and sadness and despair that Diodora felt within his heart, his core. Ultimately, that in combination with his first real battle was going to be the catalyst, the trigger, the thing to awaken his great magic coursing within the depths of his soul, and then in a big, massive burst that would destroy nearly everything around him, he would unleash it and annihilate Anne, and bada bing, bada boom. And then she'd fall off the ring or something like that, or be defeated or knocked out. But I like that Nakaba isn't just telling us that Diodora is powerless. Isn't just showing us Diodora is powerless through the fact that he cannot beat Anne in a sword fight. No, very specifically, the man has nothing. Nothing. No magic to speak of. No superhero power up. No, oh, I need to win this for the sake of my family power. None of that. He needs to rely on his servants because he himself is nothing but a shell of a man. And that's really, really good. Honestly, I wasn't expecting Nakaba to hard commit, but Nakaba hard committed. And we see as the poor girl lays there in disrepair. As Capitani says, "And now Engelhard is down. Did Diodora just strike back at her?" And that's the thing. I don't blame Capitani nor Beltrip for not interrupting this because of the invisible force that Anne used with her magic. And we see that Portia goes, "Anne?" And Hauser's like, "Hey, what the heck did he do?" And we see that while he's confused, Diodora immediately turns to Turret and understands what's happening. And says, "Oh no, Turret." And we see Anne stumbles and struggles to get back up. But she does, standing back up like a G. And says, "Oh, you've done it now." And we see that Diodora begs, "No, don't stand back up." And she gets cracked. This time, where her arm was shattered before, she gets cracked on the back of the dome piece, sent flying, and then hard cracks her skull against the ground. And we see Percy declare, "Halt the fight! The battle is over!" And he reveals that there's an invisible creature in the arena. Now, I'll admit, I'm going to readily ask y'all for this. Is this right here, this clump of what looks to be life spirits, is that meant to be the invisible creature that only Percy can see because of his abilities? Or is that something else? I have no idea what this really is. Because I would say it's this, but it doesn't look like it. It would have to be more round on the bottom, and it looks more frog-like to me than it does these life spirit shapes. So that is actually kind of strange that it's stomping about. But if that is meant to be it, a funky looking creature design. It's interesting that Turret would have direct control over life spirits, so then again, so does Ironside. And we see that Capitani says, an invisible creature, you say? Maybe so, but how do we know it exists? And I can't fully blame Capitani for that because of Anne's ability. And we see that ultimately, Rothus says, "All right, called off Turret. Any more of this?" And Turret's like, "Hey, buddy, pal, Omega, tell me, who do you want to win?" Ultimately, Turret is about the business and does not care about who needs to be stomped down or trampled over in pursuit of their goals. And as Turret goes quiet, Nasians realizes what's truly happening. And we see Diodora say, "That's enough! Stop!" And Anne, breathing heavy and coughing, still conscious, but the thing beats and beats down on her again, slamming her back in, and then smashing it again, causing her to spurt up her own blood. from her mouth, absolutely devastated by this invisible creature and its attacks. And we see the light leaves her eyes as she passes out, defeated. And Captain even declares, Engelhard has passed out. The combat is over. And yet still, the creature does not stop, knocking Anne away one more time. And we see that Nasians and Donnie both cry out for it to stop. And Isolde even begs someone to stop this whole scenario as Hauser wonders if she is truly about to die. Only for the creature as it treads towards her. And that's the one thing I'll admit. Like, clearly this is some sort of visible, like these marks left in the set, like Captain, you can probably see that, dog. Like, if I had to hazard a guess, you would probably see that. But ultimately, as the creature tromps on forward, going to crush and possibly slaughter Anne, a blade appears from the heavens. Now, Diodora is confused. Turret and Rothus immediately look up, recognizing where it came from. So does Nasians, as Donnie realizes that the person who threw it is not by their side. And even though Treeps looks on in intrigue as Percy stands there, standing in the sky. Now, the thing I do wonder, though, is what caused it to stop? Was it because Turret himself lost focus on the combat because Percy threw down the sword? Or did Percy forcefully desummon the spirit that Rothus summoned? Because presumably he's the one who can see it and react to its presence, considering he's the one who pointed it out in the first place. I don't know, but regardless, Percy lands in, dives down, and scoops up Anne. Very quiet, very angry, simply saying her name. And Diodora admits, I can't afford to lose this, no matter what. But I'm sorry. I hope you'll forgive me. And Percy, uttering a response, oh so honest to what I would say, says, I won't, no matter what reason you had. And that is where the chapter ends. A W chapter. And you may be like, whoa, what's so W about this chapter, Pencil Man? It's the fact that Anne got beat? No, it's not the fact that Anne got beat, but that is a factor in it. One, I do like how powerless, I mentioned it before and I'll mention it again, how powerless we're making Diodora. He truly is not value. Well, in the sense of a battle monk, he is kind of valueless. He has no magic, no skills, no nothing. He's bagless. His bag is non-existent. And whatever it is in his bag, his little what is it called? Rucksack? What people call rucksack sometimes. Rucksack, like, it's basically worthless. He needs to rely on his people in order to carry him. And ultimately, while he does seem to have some sort of care, he still prioritizes himself above all other things, and his goals above all other things, and his own perception too, as he begs Percy to forgive him, but ultimately Percy does not. And that's beautiful too. The rage of the man who was once meant to be but a vessel overrides and bleeds into the boy who was to be a lost soul. That's some good stuff. That's some good stuff. That's some good stuff. But if you made it all the way to the end of this video, please do me a favor and leave never forgiven. Never forgiven in the comment section down below. I would like to thank you guys so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, share. You can also comment and subscribe, and make sure you hit that tiny little notification bell so you do not miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Honestly, I genuinely starting to think that the system doesn't work. Like, I don't know. I mean, maybe people just don't like to click on the video, but like, man, like, I don't know. I don't think this box like even works anymore. Like, I beg people to hit the subscribe button, but people just don't see the videos. This is just a consistent pattern. People not know videos go up, so please hit the notification bell. And if you really enjoyed this video and want to see my live reaction to it, it's about 28 minutes long. The link will be in the description down below to my Patreon, where you can support me for as low as $1 a month. You can get this, the live reaction of this very video, and ad-free variations of all my videos. Same thing if you become a $3 member. The live reaction is also posted here on the channel, where you can check the same thing out and all other live reactions I've done previously for other chapters and other series that I cover. And I also do have a Ko-Fi in the description down below. You drop 5 beans for a short video, something like any of the shorts I do for the channel, or a long video, same thing like something like this, in the comment section, or in the description down below. Now, I'd like to thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Dago the Pencil, writing off.
I'd like to give a thank you to our $3 members, Zara, Greyhound, Eternal Flame, Red Wolf 4765, Astro, Brandon Payne, Glacier XZ, and G Prosper. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $5 members, A plus A, Ignil Lind, Kevin Encarnacion, Midnight Lord 21, and Sean. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $7 members, Fine, Austin Wimberly, Uchiha, and Yuki Ally. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $10 members, AZ Void, J Warrior, and Robbie Uchiha. And I'd like to give a big old thank you to our $10 patrons, Overlord Zero, Joaquin Munoz, and Idem Okami. And I'd like to give a final, gracious, gargantuan thank you to our $100 That Guy with a Pencil Tier patron, Calvin Elder.